Hello, welcome to the Aonian Release and Reception. Thank you for coming on this fine spring day. First, I'd like to thank a few people. Obviously, thank you to Aonian staff for all your hard work and thoughtfulness and diligence over the past semester. Thank you to the Hendrix Foundation, Hope, Henrietta, Sarah, Terry for making this happen. Thanks to Shelby for putting all the food out. We're going to unveil the Aonians. So just stay seated, and staff, if you would get up and then pass them out once they're unveiled, and we'll get this party started. First, we're going to hear from Caitlin Lowe. Hello, yes? How do you announce that Caitlin will be next year's editor? Oh, yeah? It's hard to know after so long, but I'm confident that Caitlin will do a good job, and the magazine is in good hands. So here she is to read fiction.
Okay, so what I'm going to read is a good example of not following directions. I wrote on the stand. Okay. I'm curious.
Yeah, but when you hold it, it makes it.
Should I just project?
Hold it down here.
Okay. Okay. Yeah? Okay.
That was my contribution.
So yeah, I wrote this. The prompt was write about, just for a class I'm taking, write about something that you know how to do well. And this character knows how to sell cars well, but I don't actually know how to do that. So I didn't follow directions, but I think it turned out okay. Let's see. It's on page 80. Yeah. Okay. And it's called Subprime. At least John could sell almost anything. He kept a running list of the worst cars he'd ever sold. A 96 Suzuki, 2 Pontiac Aztecs, a Chrysler Crossfire with 100,000 miles, any Hummer ever made. He looked at it when he felt he wouldn't amount to much, like a really good APR. There were other parts of himself he liked. The fact that his hair wasn't yet gray, wide shoulders, he could still speak good Spanish. He had just used his Spanish to sell a Honda Odyssey low miles to a Mexican family with 4 kids. He'd said adios as he waved them off the lot. But most days he felt like the good parts would be better off without the rest of him, more valuable separately than as a whole. The thing John could not sell was his house. Technically, it was his realtor who couldn't, but she had to pick up a second job, so he didn't blame her. It was him who couldn't afford his house. This was no fault of his own. Someone had sold him a bunch of bad parts that looked good as a whole, like a Jaguar X-Type. And no one who had less than 3 kids was buying anything but Chevrolet Impalas and Honda Accords for the miles per gallon. Gas wasn't cheap, and John was wasting it, stalling in his garage and looking at the list. The door was still open, though. He just wanted to listen to the radio. It wasn't that bad yet. Or maybe it was, he thought, feeling the thick envelope with the mortgage bill he held underneath the list. In his other hand was his lit cigarette. The lighter was in the cup holder. He had car insurance on his Grand Cherokee. He had house insurance on his prefabricated ranch. He didn't have health insurance, but he figured there could be some way to start a fire and walk away unscathed. The pilot light for the restaurant-grade range, the fireplace, overloading a socket, cooking something greasy. He could have bacon-wrapped fried chicken for dinner, go out to check an empty mailbox, and call it a night.
Fiction contest, by the way, is judged by Kevin Brockmeyer. It's not cronyism. That was not chosen by me. Next is Nonfiction, and that is Shelby, Ode to the Gynecologist. And believe it or not, Shelby does know how to spell gynecologist. I do not know how to spell gynecologist, which is why it's spelled incorrectly.
Ode to the Gynecologist. I treated you the way I have treated all of my ex-lovers. I looked you up on the internet before I got undressed in front of you. The first time I visit you, I am almost 21 years old. I should have sought you out sooner. When I turned 18, when I lost my virginity, when I fucked men I did not know on continents I did not belong to. You do not seem to mind that it has taken me 3 years to reach you. I am here now. That is all that matters. When you ask me how many sexual partners I have had, I think about lying to you. 8. When you ask me if I have had unprotected sex, I think about lying to you. Yes. I want to thank you for the fake butterflies hanging from your ceiling. When I am on my back, my feet in stirrups, my knees miles apart, I admire the butterflies fluttering in the breeze. Some of them are blue and purple. Some of them are yellow and orange. They give me something to focus on while you were searching inside of me for the answers to burning questions I have not had the courage to ask. I once drunkenly kissed my roommate, but you were the only woman who has ever seen my vagina. I wear the almost invisible crescent-shaped scar on the inside of my upper arm like a badge of honor. I make all my friends and future lovers touch the rod that has been lodged perfectly between two muscles I cannot name. I celebrate that I can have meaningless sex without fear of conception. If I don't call you, you're clean, I say. I sit next to the phone and hope it does not ring. I can finally sleep at night after it doesn't.
Thanks, Shelby. Third place poetry is Stone County by Manny Cronshaw. Lee is abroad and thus cannot read here today. So we'll move on to our art contest third place winner, Katie Bell.
Hello. So my art on page 45. Yes, you should all turn there. So some words. I painted this in a class I'm currently in called Materials and Techniques, where we learn like ancient ways of painting, and this was done in caustic, which is where you mix wax, beeswax, we melt it, and then with pigment. And if the wax gets too hot, then in the room, then we all, it becomes arsenic, I guess. And so when I was painting this, I was always feeling very sick on those class days because the pots that we had to paint them did not really do a good job at telling us what temperature they were. So we were all at risk of at one time perishing during that class. But this was in the style of a mummy portrait, which were done in the 1st century AD, I guess, as you can tell from the title. They were painted on pieces of wood that would be buried with the mummy. And so I guess this is what I would look like if I was a mummy in Egypt, buried. This would be my portrait. But I guess the people who were buried did not paint them themselves. So I guess that's not what it would look like. But yeah, so that's the art. Thank you.
Our second place question is again Kayla Well.
This one's on page 16. Okay. Things were falling apart. It started with his body, the lower right leg in Afghanistan to an IED. They told him he might still feel it sometimes, but he hadn't yet. Sometimes he wished he would. He couldn't get used to swinging his legs out of bed and only planting one foot on the floor. It didn't feel right, always starting out the day uneven. He began to sleep in, not wanting to get out of bed on one foot, and also because he'd stopped setting an alarm. The morning after his first night back home, Allie's alarm clock went off. He fell out of bed, expecting 2 feet, and crawled to the bathroom until the beeping stopped. Then there was the divorce. Allie had gone to all the support group meetings, all the weird meditation ones, the couples ones, the ones without donuts. She'd been great, and they both tried, but there was no support group that could go home with them and fill the silence, no support group that could raise their son. Jack had been born while he was deployed. He'd watched the birth on FaceTime with a terrible internet connection. When Jack first opened his mouth to cry, it was full of pixels. Sometimes his son felt like what he imagined a phantom limb would. He knew he'd had one at some point, and most days it felt like he did, but other times it didn't. He couldn't even pick Jack up at school anymore. Too many parents with car horns in the pickup line. Once he just drove away, forgetting why he was there, and Allie got a call from the supervisor. But when Allie sued for custody, he really lost it. He lost a bit when he tried to read the papers, when he got the first bill for his attorney while their therapist was testifying. The voices rang in his ears like shockwaves. In your professional opinion, is Joseph fit to parent? Does the child express a preference for... He lost it with the crack of the gavel, with the bang that echoed in the wooden room. He tried to stand steadily, gripping the bench, his knuckles and his face pale. He felt it for the first time, like they'd said, the phantom limb, like his leg had fallen asleep so heavily it was never waking up.
Please, this mic is awful. Our second place nonfiction winner is Trade Diary with Where We're Going, which is on page 40.
Where We're Going. My house used to be filled with hundreds of movies, from westerns to rom-coms. That was my family's thing, or maybe it was my father's thing and we just grew into it. Either way, we watched a lot of film. Before I graduated high school, Christopher Nolan's Interstellar had just come out on DVD. My father and I watched it together. We were science fiction fanatics, and Interstellar was the biggest hit of the year. It was also the last film we watched in the same room at the same time. In the following months, I became increasingly infatuated with the movie's soundtrack, which was written by Hans Zimmer. This score became all that I listened to when I wrote, when I ran to the gym, or when I walked to class. The music was both delicate and bombastic, both polished and raw. When Nolan approached Zimmer about writing the score for the movie, he sent him a typewritten letter, 1 page. It was a short story about a father who leaves his child to do something important. The father says, "I'll be back," to which the child responds, "When?" Within 5 months, my father died. He moved off the farm. We moved off the farm and into town. The movies were stored in a dozen cardboard boxes, all labeled DVDs. I live through Zimmer's composing. Where he writes a note, I take a step. Where he writes a crescendo, I breathe deeply. Where he writes allegro, I quicken my pace. At night is when I feel Zimmer's composition the most. The crisp air makes a melody sound more precise. A bass undertone sound fuller. The darker the night, the clearer the sound. If I close my eyes and stop walking, I can see my father and hear his breathing in the swells of the score. From the one typewritten page, Nolan asked Zimmer to write a song for one day. Zimmer used a piano and an organ to create a 4-minute piece. He said he wrote it inspired by what it meant to be a father. That 4-minute piece went on to become the basis of the soundtrack, what Nolan called the heart of the movie. Interstellar crosses vast, unimaginable, unfathomable distances of space and time over which a father must travel to save his daughter, who will also save him. And here I am, listening to what's left of my father's pulse in the notes and rhythms of another father's muse.
Thanks, Trey. Our second place poetry winner is our own Quinn Carver Johnson with My Girlfriend Helps Me With My Makeup on page 50.
My girlfriend helps me with my makeup. Not knowing the difference between the lines and shadows of my eyes, I am unsure of where to begin. I buy cheap nail polish from the clearance aisle of Walmart and coat my fingers up to the first knuckle. I slather on layer after layer of liquid lipstick and stain everything red. For the first month after we start dating, I don't paint my nails. I don't stain my lips. I wear my jeans loose and baggy. But then she takes my hands, studies every finger like she's reading fine print, bends my knuckles, traces her name into the lines on my palm. Finally, she balls my hand into a weak fist, kisses the back of it with red lips, and says, "I see the person you're trying to be, and it's okay." She takes me to the store, talks about color theory while pulling out nail polish pigments and putting them back, holds lipstick tubes up to my smile. In her bedroom, I try on my new lipstick. She tells me I have nice lips. I kiss her, and both of our faces are stained red. Thank you.
The winner for second place art is Geneva Hill, who I don't think is here. Geneva, no. Okay, so we'll move on to nonfiction because I think of JC and for the 2-1 fiction is here. So, Liam? And that's on page 12.
Okay. This is called Solaris. A week after your accident, the movie floods the room with blue. Your sheets whirlpool on the floorboards. Even in deep, drug-induced sleep, you thrash and claw at the mattress. Soviets wander the screen and cast their reflections on spaceship windows. Clones of long-dead loved ones visit them with no knowledge of the past. Like newborns, they fall in love with blankets and houseplants, and more than anything, the people who remember them, who stumble over their ghosts on holidays or when looking for socks. When you called about the stranger, about the car that hit you in the crosswalk, I was looking at your graffiti writing caps and cans and markers, each one utterly still. After you hung up, I walked to the kitchen and quickly drank the last light beer. I stared at the soup dried into plaster on the stove, the garlic clove fuzzy with mold on the cutting board. Before you left, you mixed every spice together, fried yams until honey sweet, squeezed lemons into empty rinds, and while fiddling with the stove, you handed me the breadboard, the garlic. Crush it with a knife, you said, and then cut it up as small as you can.
Liam also won Christmas poetry, so he's reading again.
Okay, this one's called The Thin White Duke. You began as Bowie, a bird-bone singer suffocated by the States. With white knuckles, you skittered through interviews, praising brown shirts and their blood-soaked whites. Your shirt sleeves dangled like guillotines. Hot snow snarled in your sinus. You feasted on fresh red peppers and expired milk, lived a life of white flannel trousers, of walks on the beach, of champagne flutes left shattered in the sand. Above a crowd of thousands, you puffed pearl smoke from bloodless lips. We imitated your hips, lisp, and colorlessness, your dead-eyed dandyism. You collected iron crosses and gray uniforms. You tried your hand at whitewashing. And still we stared as you fell to earth. Still we listened as the pale label spun, as the record scratched, as you confessed. Trapped in my circle, here am I, flashing no color.
That's it for our winners, but thank you all for coming and enjoy snacks. and grab plenty of copies for your friends and family and anyone who you think enjoys art and literature.